we'll talk about it here.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, I'm gonna put it right here. So, when did I start the podcast?
Yes.
So I've had a thought and a desire in me for a long time, probably over a decade, to like record the stories of my family. And I was able to do that. I met with my grandparents, got about an hour and a half of their life story with both of them. A couple years before my grandmother passed away, and after bugging my dad for years because he was in Vietnam, and he actually was stationed in Thailand, running missions over Cambodia when they weren't being run
Yes.
at the end of the war. And I didn't know that until he finally agreed to sit down and talk to me about 3 years ago.
Those guys are very rarely did.
Yeah, right?
You know, they came back and they didn't say anything.
Yep. Um, and I was fortunate that he agreed to do that, and I think I know why, because he has vascular dementia. And so now you can't really have a conversation with him.
Right.
But he knew it at the time and didn't tell us, never told us he had a heart condition. I don't know if you know about vascular dementia at all, or
I don't know, no.
it's actually plaque buildup in your arteries that breaks off and stops in your brain, because that's where your smallest blood arteries are. They're that small, but it's just miniature strokes over time,
Oh, wow.
and so small that you may not notice what's going on, to the point that we've noticed a deterioration in it for probably about a decade, and it was probably happening the whole time, just small strokes here and there, and so he agreed to do that about 3 years ago, and this last year is when he got to the point where he has dementia.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, thanks, I appreciate it. But, it is what it is, and we've been, now it's just something we deal with, and, I don't want to feel cold saying that, but,
No,
you...
we saw Dad begin to decline when he hit 80, and he was finally diagnosed as dementia. We didn't really notice any severe change in behaviors with him until he was about 81. Of course, he died just a few months later.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we just saw tiny steps, kind of like you're seeing with your dad. And I started doing the same thing you're doing, except I started getting it on paper, writing down his stories. Thank goodness he'd already started before I tried to finish them off. So I've got a whole book full of his memories on paper. Plus, as you've seen me posting on Facebook, I've started writing down his stories by trying to pull up his voice in my head,
Yeah.
and then getting them down.
That's great. And I've been reading your stories, and they're fun, It's like, I just like hearing people's stories.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, and I don't need a 34-page chapter on some incident that occurred, but I'm looking for, 250 words on a little thing that happened, and then try to find a way to relate it to other folks. And my biggest goal is if somebody sees the same thing in their own life.
Yes.
If I strike a memory for them and they write me a note back on Facebook that says, hey, that same thing happened to me, or I've got a similar story, I'm thrilled. I don't care whether or not they think I'm cute. I already know I'm not cute. My goal is for them to look back on their own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's we're basically 100% similar there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so I did that with my family, and I was happy to get those, and I've still got more people to get, and I feel bad I didn't sit down with my father-in-law, and he passed away last June.
Sorry.
So yeah, so that I wish I'd done that, right? There was also a lady at work, and I met her. I've been at my employer for 8 years, so I met her. I've known her the whole 8 years, or I knew her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was an African-American lady, and I found out that she had grown up in Kentucky in the 50s and 60s through desegregation, and her dad owned a farm in Kentucky. Yeah, and I talked to her a little bit, and she talked more about the deseg and her brother getting beaten up at school, and
Sure.
and some of the challenges, not a lot, but I know that she's been through real serious tribulations, and I really think back to her dad owning a farm in the middle of Kentucky in that time period, and I can't imagine what they went through.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I had always thought I would love to get together with her and do a podcast, or just record her story, so
Sure.
maybe and just give it to her so she has it for her family. And I didn't do it, and she passed a couple years ago. She got cancer. It was very fast, and I regretted that, but it kind of just left my mind, And it wasn't like like I wish I had done that, and I wish I had done these things. And I wish I just started up talking to people, and I didn't. So I have a friend, an online friend that I met through playing Star Wars. I play a Star Wars game on my phone. See?
Hey, we are all just big kids.
Exactly. Star Wars brings us together. Anyway.
I should not tell you because we're close in age, but I'm a little older. Star Wars movies came out, when I was coming up through middle school and high school.
Uh-huh.
I didn't see them. I'm a farm kid. We didn't go to the movies.
Yeah.
So when I retired 4 years ago, I finally saw the Star Wars movies. I'm just now catching up with
Yeah.
that whole generation's worth of films that I didn't have time for, or we didn't spend the money on things like that, or it just wasn't available because it was a half an hour just to drive into town.
Now,
Yep.
did
Now
you
I'm a
know?
Star Wars fan.
Did you know Darth Vader was Luke's father before you
Yeah,
saw it?
well, there's some spoilers that are
Okay.
that was 37 years ago. So yeah, I knew.
Okay.
It was still kind of a neat moment when I finally saw it on screen, though.
Yeah, right. That's funny. And I saw Star Wars at the drive-in when I was 5.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. How far behind are you? I'm 55 now.
I'm 8 years behind you.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's about right. You were in middle school.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were. It was the first movie I ever saw at the drive-in, and I remember the whole experience. I remember that my sister and my dad brought a paper grocery bag full of popcorn because you don't want to pay for it. And my sister and I wanted to sit on the hood of the car and watch the movie and eat the popcorn.
Yeah.
But then we realized we couldn't hear it because the speaker is up at the window of the car. So we had to get back in the car.
Sure.
I remember taking a bathroom break during the trash compactor scene. I remember the whole experience. It was that impactful on me, and then I started buying figures. I had saved up money, and I think the figures were $1 at the time.
Oh, sure.
And that was a new thing, action, small
yeah.
action figures.
Yeah, that was a whole new market.
Yeah, and so first two I bought were C-3PO and Darth Vader, and then I've just been hooked ever since. Yeah.
I only have a tiny similar story in the fact that I saw Jurassic Park at a drive-in theater because I couldn't get a ticket anyplace else.
Wow.
So we're literally lying on the hood of the car watching this giant screen. And of course, when the first movie came out, that was huge. And the movie was huge on the screen. And so the dinosaurs were huge, but the sound was tinny and tiny and small. So I had to go back and see it a second time in a real theater to get the real experience.
Yes.
It was pretty, it was overwhelming kind of watching the dinosaurs, on that giant screen.
I remember that too because the special effects didn't do that.
No.
Yeah, that was a brand new thing that a dinosaur could look like a dinosaur.
Yeah, yes.
And not a claymation
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, drive-ins are going through a renaissance right now because
It's the thing to do again.
Right.
And thank goodness, there's a Skyview in Belleville.
Yeah.
It's still there, which is where I saw, since I'm an Illinois kid, that's where I saw Jurassic Park too.
Yeah, pretty funny. So anyway, I was and
Rabbit hole.
That's fine. And I'm friends with this guy online, and we actually have become, as real of a friend as you become with somebody you don't have any contact with, right?
Right.
So somebody described it to me yesterday as you're like new friends all the time. You're like, you're always there's distance, but you're still friends. And so we actually had followed each other on Facebook, and I saw that his wife was pregnant because she posted something on his post.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hey, is your wife pregnant? Or did you have a baby? And he said, no. And I'm like, well, she was a surrogate.
Oh.
And so my brain lit up immediately. And I'm like, okay, so I wanted to tell stories, and here we go. And for me, and she was my first podcast. She's
Okay.
out there right now. You can, and I can send you the link. And such a great story. She just talks about why she did it and the process. And they still are in touch with the couple, and they know the girl,
Okay.
even though they're not genetically related.
Right.
They maintain a relationship, and that's a new thing. I'm going to talk to an adopted family that they knew as well. That they all keep in touch.
Okay.
Which is not how it used to work.
Oh, no.
The opposite was
Everything
true.
was a secret.
Yeah, right. So that kind of got me lit up, and I think it's where I am in life. So to tell my story a little bit more, and
Yeah.
sorry I'm getting into me here, but I have a BA.
Hey, it's really all about you, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. That's what it always comes down to. Um, I got my BA in theater,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do until within the last 5 to 8 years, somewhere in
Mm-hmm.
that range.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and got my MBA, and I really enjoy managing and developing and working with people. And so I think that that comfort level of who I am and what I like doing and just doing it, it took me a lot longer than some people to get there.
Yeah.
But at 47, when I found out that she was a surrogate, and I'd had this thing on my mind for a long time and not done it, I just said, "Well, let's just do it."
Sure.
And so I'm 4 into the podcast. I got my 5th one recorded, and I just published my sister's story yesterday, and I'll be creating a group on Facebook and inviting a bunch of people that have had, that are,
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, and I'll be doing that. I'm kind of feeling this out as I go, and I'm not looking for fame and fortune. What I've been telling everybody is at the minimum level, you have something that's recorded for posterity for your friends and family.
There you go.
At a maximum level, you can impact some lives, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happens after that is just happens. And so if I can do this for whatever period of time and keep finding people, because that's the challenge I'm finding is I have a limited circle of people I know. But then it seems like I hadn't thought of talking to you at the beginning, but I saw your stories on Facebook and I had read through them. I'm like, you have a unique experience with life. Maybe not unique, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I thought it would be interesting to talk to you for those very reasons. So
All right.